Friday night, and we'll take a breather from heavier news for a few minutes and take a look at what's appearing on screens and theaters this weekend. Our guide, of course, Richard Crouse, CTV film critic. Always good to have you. Nice seeing you, Richard.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to try to squeeze in 4 films, I take it, this week. So let's get right to it. The first has Ben Affleck reprising a role as a math savant, The Accountant 2. Here's a clip.
Do you like puzzles, Mr. Wolf? Ray King has been murdered. I need your help to finish the job he started.
This was years after the original.
Almost 10 years. And the original came out, did okay business in movie theaters, but then did really well on streaming and on DVD. So here we are sitting with The Accountant 2, 9 years after the original release. And it's a little bit different than the original one in that there's some new characters. Ben Affleck returns as the neurodivergent accountant who's also a hitman and sort of handy with a gun and all that kind of thing. But now he has a brother played by Jon Bernthal. And man, when they are on screen together, it lights up the screen. The story is complicated. It's a story of human trafficking, and there's all sorts of kind of odd things that happen in and around the accountant's life. But when the brothers are on screen, it's funny, it rockets along, and you know the action sequences are a bit few and far between, and the plot is a little bit messy, but I really like this. I was entertained by it. So it's in theaters now. It's like a 4 to 5-star movie for me.
Okay, and entertaining might just be what people are after this weekend.
Absolutely.
Next is a Canadian film. Okay, the French were involved too. It's David Cronenberg's latest offering called The Shrouds. Here we go.
I had an intense urge to get into the box with her.
You never considered cremation?
How dark are you willing to go?
Okay, Cronenberg films are always an event. I know this was at Cannes. Does he still have that edge?
Yeah, he sure does. This is a film that is possibly his most personal film ever, written in some ways in response to the passing of his wife of many decades and the grief that he felt afterwards. And so in this film, you have Vincent Cassel, the great French actor, playing a businessman whose wife has passed away. And he's the voice that we just heard saying, "How dark are you willing to go?" And this movie is willing to go dark places. He creates a way of viewing the body inside the casket while buried underground as a way of maintaining some sort of connection to your dearly departed. There's more. Guy Pearce plays a hacker. There's sort of intrigue and all sorts of other things. But at the heart of this is a story about confronting grief in whatever way you can. And it is done in David Cronenberg's inimitable style. So I gave this one like 3.5 out of 5 stars. And if you're a Cronenberg fan, you'll want to see it.
Yeah, and it really does give some insight about his own thought process these days. Yeah. Okay. Another Canadian features prominently in our next selection. Tommy Chong reuniting with Cheech Marin for Chichin Chong's last movie. Look, they've aged. Are they still relevant, though, now that cannabis has been legalized? That was part of the fun in the old days.
Well, I think that probably takes a bit of the edge away from some of the humor that we see in this film, which is a documentary about their early lives and then how they kind of dovetailed together to become Cheech and Chong after meeting in Vancouver. But this is a film that will remind people just how huge Cheech and Chong were for, a number of years in the 70s and into the early 80s. And the movie, like the films that they used to make, this documentary is irreverent. It doesn't take itself all that seriously until we get nearer the end and we start getting to the point at which they broke up professionally. And after that professional divorce happened, you can see that even decades later, that hurt still kind of bubbles up when they talk about it. It's quite something. And I was a fan, so I enjoyed Cheech and Chong's last movie.
Tommy Chong, you mentioned from BC, he has gone on to do some interesting work and quite varied over the years.
Yeah. And direct. He's done a lot of directing, and that's one of the things that kind of put a wedge between Cheech and Chong. As Tommy Chong became more and more involved as a director, Cheech says, well, we both knew what was funny, but now one person got to decide what was funny. And that's what kind of put the wedge in.
And Cheech Marin kind of stuck with light comedy. He did a whole bunch of films, some television as well. Okay, our final film we're going to wrap up with is a fantasy adventure called The Legend of Oki. Did I say that right?
Ochi.
Ochi? Okay, here's a look.
Your parents have offered you to this cause. They say, here, make something of my boy.
There's no one better than that fella right there for this type of character.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe plays the head Ochi hunter in this little village in the Carpathian Mountains, and there's all sorts of myths about these creatures that got huge fangs, and they attack the livestock and sometimes come and kidnap the villagers. And so they go out on hunts, and on one of the hunts, his daughter, Willem Dafoe's daughter, finds a little Ochi that has been injured and decides to deliver it back to its mother. And along the way, discovers that they're not quite the terrible beasts that everyone thought they were. And this is a really fanciful movie for the entire family. That's kind of like I'm describing it as an art house movie for kids. And I think that there's good messages in here about not judging a book by the cover and loyalty and friendship, but it's also an incredible looking film as well. It's called The Legend of Ochi, and in theaters this weekend.
Part Yoda, part Gremlin.
Yeah, sort of.
Right?
It's got kind of an odd little vibe to it, but and Baby Yoda for sure was an inspiration here.
Hey, I got about 30 seconds left, but something came up earlier in the week that the Academy has now made it mandatory for all voters to actually watch the films they're going to vote on for Oscars. How does that happen?
Yeah, you might have imagined that was already a rule. And in some categories it was, in the animated category and in the documentary category. Now they've put steps in place to make sure that everyone sees the movies they're voting on, so they're not just voting for their friends, or they're not getting together and, doing what they call coattail voting, which is, Tom Hanks says, hey, I'm voting for such and such. And everyone says, well, if Tom's voting for him, I'm voting for him too.
Right. Or listening to, the giant full-page ads in Variety and the Hollywood Reporter.
Right.
Richard Crouse, we know you watch them all, and we appreciate you bringing your intel to us. Thanks again, and happy viewing.
Thank you. See you soon.
We'll take a break. We're back with much more after this.